Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez and I'm with Sauce as the co-host, and he's a little bit nervous. He hasn't been speaking too much in the pre-show, but his Geelong Cats are in the grand final against the Richmond Tigers tomorrow in the first night grand final and the first grand final at the Gabba.
Yes, and the first grand final that one of our teams has been in since we've been doing our little podcast. So very exciting stuff. And we were just talking then how it's going to be on our next show when we have to review the grand final if it's a losing grand final.
Yeah, I was trying to book the show in for the review, but I did think about when St Kilda were losing grand finals back in the day, and I thought, you know what, I wouldn't have been ready by the Monday because I walk home without speaking. I didn't speak the next day and probably didn't go to the work for the next week after that. So I don't know how you're going to pull up, but we've scheduled it in for Monday. It'll probably be Tuesday, Wednesday of the following week, I'd imagine.
It will definitely depend on how Geelong play and how the grand final unfolds.
The grand final, if you win, you'll ring me at 11 o'clock on the night going, jump on Zoom, let's get it.
Let's get this going. The old tomahawk will be out, mate, and it'll be all parties. But it is definitely going to be a different grand final. It's going to be the sort of first one that I'm not actually be able to go there. You know, Geelong member. I've been there for all the wins. Unfortunately,
you didn't want to quarantine 2 weeks ago. You weren't confident enough.
I said to you, I was pretty keen. I couldn't get the time off work. If I was still doing some, mostly remote sort of learning and mostly online sort of work, I probably could have done it, but went back to work. So
I thought this is our job, isn't it?
I mean, my part-time job, yeah, the one that's sort of the hobby I'm talking, not a full-time gig, but definitely a different grand final week. Normally, the grand final week is. It's filled with great AFL stories. You find out about all the different things that have been happening throughout the year that players have been playing with injuries and stories. But
there's excitement. It builds up. But this year, it's been all about the trade week and the trade radio and free agency. We're not going to mention that yet because we are going to do a show next week about that and sum it up for the last month. But it's been happening for a long time, and I think it's taken a little bit away from the grand final, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think another reason that we haven't had so many stories come out is normally you find out about a whole range of different things that have happened throughout the year in the lead up, and they're keeping it very hush-hush because of the hub business. And, it's a very interesting week, not only for supporters, because Richmond and Geelong have both been staying in the same hotel in their hub life. Apparently their kids have been playing together. They've been having breakfast sessions together throughout the season. Obviously not this week, probably a little bit different, but crazy scenes. And question without notice, Pez, grand final this year, the premiership winner, whoever it is, asterisks or no asterisks?
I'll go for St Kilda, so it's an asterisk. I did say that someone at work earlier in the week. I said to them, no matter who you go for, if you go for the winner of the premiership, it counts and it's special. If you're one of the other 17 clubs, you're going to say that it's an asterisk and you don't care. But in all honesty, and if I put my analysis hat on...
Yeah, you're actually going to do that this week. You're not just going to continue to play with your heart. I've been trying for almost a month, mate, to get you to put that hat on.
If I do that, this premiership counts as any other. It's no more special and it's no less special. The season has happened. It's been the same rules for everyone. It's been a 17-game season for everyone. There's been nothing different about it. West Coast would have still played away in those other games. They stuffed it up for themselves. They didn't finish top 4 and they couldn't do that. The first time ever that 3rd and 4th have played against each other, it's big time because none of those, Port Adelaide and Brisbane, couldn't win. They were at home in the prelim final, couldn't win. So these two teams deserve to be there. They're playing at the Gabba, which is a little bit different. The MCG turf will be there for when they run out, but it means as much as any other.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'm happy about, obviously that Geelong's there, but if I do the same thing as you and I put on that sort of analytical hat, I think it's good that two teams that spent a majority of the time within the hub and didn't get a home ground advantage have made it. I think that makes it a little less of an asterisk.
I think that's good because you won't talk about Geelong playing at Skilled or MCG in the future and you won't complain about that. That's good.
I just think that, you talked about everyone was under the same circumstances, but that wasn't true because we did have Port Adelaide and Brisbane and West Coast and obviously, those other sort of state teams that did have that sort of advantage. I think it's good that two teams that had to isolate and were isolated for 100 and something days and, really felt the whole impact of the COVID have actually made it to the grand final. I think that sort of puts more of an even playing field. I don't think I would have been happy if Brisbane playing a home final there. Obviously, it happens in Melbourne, but, they haven't really felt the grueling task. It's just been day-to-day business for them. Same with, West Coast and Port Adelaide being able to have their own sort of home finals. I think it is good for a little less of an asterisk overall.
You think it helped Geelong because they're on the Gold Coast. They're at Brisbane. They didn't have to travel up from Geelong all the way to Brisbane to play the prelim.
Yeah, most definitely. That could have definitely helped you. And you're never going to know because it's obviously hindsight and you're never going to have those sort of, the sliding door sort of aspect. But it is interesting to think, and I think it's good. And it's interesting that the teams that played probably the two best teams through the final series have been probably Richmond and Geelong, and both those teams have had isolation for the most. Those teams went over to Perth when they had to isolate in Perth for that month. Then they went straight from there to Brisbane, and they've been there ever since. I think it's 100 and something days of isolation.
Yeah, about 108 the other day. So
Crazy.
it'll be something a little bit more than that. By the time they finish up, they did get their families in the hub, as you mentioned, the kids and things before, mingling at dinners and things, and the parents
they'd be loving it, wouldn't they?
not able to control what they were doing. But it's been weird because the hub, they had more teams than that. And then when teams get eliminated, they eventually leave and go home, and then there's only two left.
Yeah.
And they're the only two left in the competition. It's crazy stuff.
Got a little bit of the NCAA, the Cinderella story, the Final Four, the last two standing, and it really is the last two standing. And then, we were talking about this during, I think it was our last show that we were talking, maybe it was in private, is when the team wins, what do they actually do? Like, Geelong can obviously, if they win, they can go back to Melbourne. They've got to quarantine for a little while. They can't go and party. They'll probably spend another week up in the Gold Coast and just go and let loose, going nuts.
I can guarantee you whoever wins is going to do that, and whoever loses is probably going to do that as well because they need to do their Mad Monday. They need to get up and about and doing that because a big time to quarantine and things. After they do their Mad Monday and they have a couple of days of
recovery,
recovery, then they can get back to their families. They can do the right thing. But some of their families are up in Queensland, so some of them might not even come back to Melbourne, depending on what happens on Sunday with this lockdown stuff.
Very interesting stuff. Very interesting, and it'll be interesting for the fans as well because if Geelong gets up tomorrow, then Geelong they're out of isolation. They're sort of in the country restrictions. They've got pubs open tomorrow. That place will be nuts, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens in Melbourne if Richmond win because we remember last time that they won. Punt Road was
the whole street
on fire almost. The whole street was alight.
Gone. I honestly had not thought about that yet. But even if Geelong win, like what's going to happen? Like,
well, the pubs are open up there, so
Geelong will be in the pub today on the public holiday in Victoria, and they'll be there tomorrow.
I was trying to find a way down there, Pez. I was trying to find any excuse. I was trying to.
Someone sign my document, please.
please.
But then you've got Richmond, like you did say, 2017, 2019.
Yeah,
same thing. They won the premiership. The Punt Road closed down. No cars could get through. Is anyone even going to be there? Because you look in the city, you watch on Twitter, people have been going there and everything's closed down. Like if Crown Casino is closed down and the lights are off, you're in trouble, Melbourne.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's just going to be a different vibe tomorrow. And especially with the game probably finishing about 10:30ish, there'll be Victoria will be dead like at night time. It's already pretty dead as it is. It'll be completely dead. And then it'll be interesting to see what the drones catch after about 10:30. What ends up happening after 10:30?
Now, conspiracy theory. We spoke about conspiracy theories last week as well. But the reason they made it a night grand final, I think, is because
I heard this. Yeah,
because they knew Victoria were going to be in lockdown, and if it was a day grand final, it'd be very easy if you back onto an alleyway or a park or a golf course, knock your back fence down for the day, put a big screen out the back. I back onto a bit of an alleyway, and I've been thinking about it. Put a big screen out there, knock it down, invite the whole suburb around, whoever's within 25 Ks. Go and have a little picnic there, 1.5 metres. You'll still be safe. It'll still be legal, and you can watch the game on the big screen. But they've put it at night, and the weather's not too good.
Yeah, no reason why you can't get a little iPad out, Pez. Just the old iPad out there. 20 people gathered around the iPad.
Everyone loves a
On
big
top of-
screen
on
for the
top of the-
grand
on top of
final,
the
mate.
esky.
Come on.
Hey, what would you prefer, having it on a small screen by yourself?
Small screen by myself.
Big screen by yourself, or a small screen filled with all of your closest mates that you normally would gather in a grand final?
You know what? Being in Victoria, being in the lockdown state, I'd probably have to do it on Zoom.
No,
Gonna have to follow the rules.
We've done Zoom a couple of times for AFL, and it is not even close to the same. And we've been working on a couple of obviously the game's going to be free to air tomorrow, but we've been working on a KO delay, and it's been very frustrating. Can you pause for 30 seconds and I'll catch up? What are you up to? He's throwing it in now.
We've been watching games in the rounds, is what Sauce is talking about, and sometimes one of us is on Foxtel and one of us is on KO because the game's not on free to air TV. So. We're just going, yep, pause, 16:25 now, 16:24, 16:23. And we had to do that a couple of times during those games. But it was much better fun watching it with someone on Zoom than by yourself. So I think that's what will happen on Saturday. But I think a lot of people will be breaking the rules.
I think there will be a lot of that going on, Pez. And it's a real shame that we weren't allowed out, but obviously that was the safest thing to be doing, and that was what's best for us in the longevity of things. We're not getting into a political debate. I can see your face, the eyes raising there.
You talk about the safest thing to do, but yes, you're outside, but if you go to anywhere that's like a park area now, or I've never seen so many people exercise in these last 3 months, I'll tell you that.
Exactly right. That's healthier, isn't it?
It's healthier, so it might have helped, but there can be 500, 600, 700, 800 people in the one area that are really, really close. So if one of those people actually have the virus, they can start to spread it. But we're down to 5.5 on the rolling average of 14 days. Had one case today, so hopefully it's less tomorrow. Daniel Andrews was always going to go, no grand final. What he should have done, and this is my vote, one other household you can have together to watch the grand final, because if you're with your mate, then no one would have complained.
Yep.
But now, lots of people are going to break the rules and have a grand final barbecues, parties, things like that.
I think when we said we're not going to get into it, but we'll quickly get into the political side of things. I think that the people who are breaking the rules are going to do that anyway. But when you've had so many things sort of taken away from Victorians, not being able to go have a beer with your mate, watch the grand final, one other household, I think that those people who have obeyed the rules for so long, and with the numbers coming so close to being down, I think there's going to be a lot of people that break the rules. And I think that because you're not allowed to do it with one mate, there will be people having little parties going on. And if they just come out and said, hey, you can do it with one other household, not just me personally, but there are a lot of people out there who will probably just be like, you know what, I'll just go and do the right thing.
Yeah, and people would have. And that's all some people want.
Yeah.
Some people just want that one mate to go. If you've got a group of 4, 2 mates go in one house, 2 mates go in some other bloke's house within the kilometre range, and you're good to go. It's ready to go.
My sister, so I've been living with my parents for this ISO time, and my sister, mad Geelong fan. Normally we go to the football together. Haven't seen her since it all started. We're actually going to be watching the grand final apart, and if we could have had her over there, that would have been enough for us. That would have been perfect.
And that's who you would have chosen. And that's what you would have done. And I don't know if they realise how much this means, but
it means a lot more than people are making out. And I think people are really underestimating how important it is, and how football has really kept people sane during this pandemic. And yeah, I feel like they could have made some adjustments to the rules to ensure safety still was applied, and it was it was a bit of a reward and a thank you to everyone for doing the right thing during this.
Look, I agree with what you say, but it's not a thank you and it's not a reward. I think it would have been the smart thing to do for the government, because doing what they did and saying no one in the households, only outdoor things, I think that's going to create more problems for them. I think that's going to create more people breaking the law. If they just said one other household can come in to your household, watch the grand final together, and then go home or do whatever you want, stay over, I think that would have created less people breaking the law and less police presence having to be available. They're all going to be available. I don't know how they're going to go with fining and things, because if you're a policeman, you're not just a policeman, yeah? You're a citizen, and you're feeling this as well, and you know what's going on. So you might knock on a door and go like, just quieten down or do this.
Yeah, whoever's in that household has half an hour to make themselves scarce by the time we come back and have a little knock through, or hey lads, just keep it down a little bit, or whatever it is. But you're right, it's Yeah, it probably was the smartest thing to do is to actually open it up for give a little, just a tiny bit. Didn't need to be a lot. You didn't have to go crazy. People would have complained anyway. Just give us a little.
People are still going to complain no matter what.
Always.
But I think less people would break the rules if they did that. So, but what are we here to do? We're here to speak about the grand final and Richmond play against Geelong at the Gabba.
Yep. Geelong playing Richmond, 7:30 start. Pez, the first thing off the bat when we're talking about grand final day, before we get into the actual teams, mate, is night grand final. A little bit weird, isn't it?
Very weird, especially when it's up at the Gabba. In Queensland, they've got the hot weather up there and there can be some dew and things like that. There's been a lot of talk about the weather with the thunderstorms and things, and Richmond being the better weather team. We saw Geelong defeat Fremantle earlier in the year.
Rain.
In torrential rain. That was the worst weather we saw all year. But Richmond have been known in the last 4 years to play well in the wet.
Yeah, so it's predicted to be 27 degrees tomorrow. About 7 o'clock, we're looking at about 22, 23 degrees, so still quite hot.
Warmer than Melbourne.
71% chance of rain, so it's probably going to be wet, dewy, and you're right, it does suit Richmond's sort of style of football, but as we've said, I think that it'll be the team that adjusts not only to the weather, but to the game style. We've said this the whole series, that will take the chocolates. But let's get back to this night grand final, Pez, because I've been having a little bit of a conundrum because I don't actually know how to approach tomorrow. I love to have a bit of a frothy. Obviously, I'm going to be extremely nervous.
Oh, here we go.
I'm going to be extremely nervous. Normally, my routine starts off about 10:30. I have the grand final breakfast. A couple of times I've actually been to the grand final breakfast. They've moved it to a grand final brunch. So that's
in Queensland?
Yep, confuses me a little bit there, so I can't go to that, obviously. Then I normally get to my mate's house. We sit down. We watch The Longest Kick, which is not going ahead this year. They're going to do a review of The Longest Kick. And that's normally when I start to have my first couple of froths. All right, and then normally you get up into the game, and about 3 o'clock it starts. The first quarter, normally I probably don't have a beer because it's just pure enjoyment of football, and then you continue. But tomorrow, I actually don't know how to approach it at all.
7:30 you said the start was, didn't you? That's going to be tough because I haven't been involved in a grand final with my team since 2010. You haven't been involved since 2011. So what did you do in 2011? Did you...
Went to the game.
You went to the game?
I got up, got about 6:30, caught a train into the city, had a nice breakfast in South Bank with the bloke that I go to the football with. We had a couple of cheeky breakfast beers, and then we went to the park outside where the G is. We had a bit of a kick around with the footy. We had a couple more beers, watched the festivities going on, and then got to our seat and
that's it.
Had a few more beers to try and relax a bit.
Well, see, 2010, every time we've been in the grand final, except for 97 because I was too young, I've been to the grand final. So it's a little bit different. So when you're not in the grand final, it's always about the mates. And you're with your mates and you're doing things like 2018 was a great memory with your mates. West Coast versus Collingwood. West Coast coming back from 5 goals down at quarter time.
Any opportunity you have to bring this up, you bring it up, mate. Any opportunity. Dom Sheed. For every opportunity.
Dom Sheed, absolutely amazing. Shout out to Salty, who's a great listener. He's been a part of the show as well. He'd be loving it right now.
He would be. But, I think there's a lot of people tomorrow, especially with the Cox Plate going on throughout the day. There's going to be a lot of people that, one, lose a lot of money throughout the punt because it is one of those days where even your regular bettors jump on the punt with the AFL, and then you've got the race as well. And there's a lot of people, I think, that aren't going to make the distance.
Oh, it's 7:30.
7:30.
Usually people are asleep by 7:30 because the grand final finishes about 5:30, 6 o'clock, around there. And you've got to actually make it that day. People are still going to think, you know what, it's grand final day, so we're going to start at the same time. And what's going to happen? We're going to start at the same time, we're going to drink, and then we're going to pass out probably before the game. So a lot of people are actually going to miss it. Yeah,
I know. It is predicted to be the most watched AFL grand final ever, but they haven't taken
that into account, have they?
Have not taken into consideration all the people out there that are going to crow a little bit earlier.
They won't be able to turn their TV off though, so maybe they are right.
Maybe, yeah, probably. Because you and I, when we read that stat, the most anticipated to be the most watched grand final ever, we're like, that can't be right. But then we thought about it, well, there's 100,000 people who aren't actually going to the game. So there's probably not 100,000, probably looking at
70,000?
70,000 more TVs that are watching, which is correct. But it's very interesting. Nighttime obviously offers a different audience across worldwide as well.
Exactly. I don't know the time zones in other countries, but America have had, with the coronavirus, America have had a little bit of interest in the AFL this year. So we will see what happens over there. But replays and things will be watched. Geelong versus Richmond, it's going to be big.
It's going to be massive. Like right now in America, you talked about the time difference. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning there for over the western side of the country. So you're probably looking about the early sort of morning session for them. So not a great timing for them. I thought it was a little bit better.
No, not great.
But yeah, let's get into the actual game. I've avoided it long enough, Pez. I am extremely nervous. I've been all right until we started talking. So I sat down there here to actually talk footy. But
you've been talking everything but footy
because it's hard. It's so hard.
How long have we been recording for?
About 15, 20 minutes.
15 or 20 minutes. You've been avoiding it. We have to talk about the game. We have to talk about the footy. We're going to talk about both teams, and so are you, Sauce. We're going to talk about why Richmond can win and what their weaknesses are. We're going to do the same thing for Geelong, and then we're going to give a tip.
Yeah, and we are going to try our best to analyse things extremely just analytical stats. We're talking about game plans. We're talking about players' advantages. And try our best, because we have, as discussed last week, it is quite hard to give a tip when you do have an investment in it. Pez, obviously, interested to hear your tip when we get down to it, because normally you go for the interstate side, we'll get down to that at the end. But
not even interstate. It's usually, because it's two Victorian teams, obviously. In the finals, I go for the team that I don't want. I go for the team that I want to win the most, because I don't want the other team to win.
Yeah, so it's who you like least.
Who I like least, I will go for them.
Yeah, and that sort of makes sense. All right, let's get underway. Richmond have had an absolute perfect season. They've peaked at the right time. They have they finished, after very similar to Geelong. It's the first time in a grand final that the teams both losing in the first week and not finishing top two have made it through to a grand final, which is a crazy stat. I didn't believe that at all. Unbelievable. So they've had a pretty good final series. They were a little bit unlucky through their first game against Brisbane. They probably should have put them away in that last quarter, but they have been one of the better performing teams throughout the final series, led by, of course, no other than Dusty Martin. He has been an absolute superstar this final series.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've got the Dustin Martin versus Dangerfield. They've been all over the media at the moment, but Dustin Martin isn't even the captain. And if you ask the average fan who the captain of Richmond is, they probably wouldn't be able to tell you, Sauce. What do you reckon?
It's hard to tell, yeah, probably not. Probably Cochin. A lot of people wouldn't even remember that he still plays for Richmond.
Well, there you go, and that's the thing. But Richmond, they've got the side, they've got the experience, and they're playing at the Gabba. Geelong probably have the advantage this season with playing more games at the Gabba and being undefeated. Richmond have lost there at the Gabba this year and played a lot less games. But we've got to talk about their strengths. So their strengths, you've got Tom Lynch up forward, who no matter what he does on the field, he's actually playing in the grand final. So it doesn't even matter what he does on the field, because he's going to be playing the whole time, barring injury. And he is an amazing forward, takes strong marks, can kick goals, can kick it accurately. You talk about that midfield. You've got Dion Prestia in there. Dustin Martin, is he going to play midfield? Is he going to go forward? He's going to do both on the day. We know that. Cochin, Edwards just came back in the final series. He's another good player. He can go forward and kick goals. Shea Bolton has actually gone forward because he did play midfield. Shane Edwards has taken that spot. He's played out of the goal square in the final series and come in and kick goals.
Mate, he has had an absolute ripper final series and really established him as one of the young guns of the Tigers, but not only the Tigers, the league. For him to be able to stand up in this sort of a platform in this big game, his role in the St Kilda victory, he almost won that game off his own back and set themselves right up for the right, the right direction. Same with the Port Adelaide game. Stepped up in big moments, had some really crucial plays, and you would expect him to continue that sort of form in the grand final.
Yeah, their defence against Port Adelaide in that preliminary final, Port Adelaide had every stat going for them. They were going to get inside 50 more. They just couldn't get the ball past these players. You got Boston, you got Grimes, you got Bolter, you've got Asprey. They just played so well and were able to rebound and keep it out. They might not have been keep it out for long, but it came back in and they got it out again because they did really well in defence, won that game for Richmond.
Yeah, you and I were talking before the show about how You're looking at two teams that are playing two different systems, and it sort of will be who plays the system better or who sort of counteracts the other system. But you can't ignore the talent that they have in their backline. Vlosten, Bashahuli, Baker, Grimes. We talked about Bolter going forward there, but Nathan Broad. They've all been amazing. And a massive stat that I read before is that Broad, Grimes, and Vlosten have not lost a one-on-one contest this final series, which is incredible.
You're kidding me. Where did you see that stat?
I'm trying to find the actual website there that I found it. I accidentally closed the window, but that is an incredible stat.
That is absolutely amazing. Have not lost a one-on-one contest. I know Grimes is really good for one-on-one contests. He speaks well. A couple of Richmond players, I'm going to be honest, do like to, put a bit of mustard on it, do a little bit of flopping, and Grimes is one of them. And he actually won my respect with one of his interviews he did. He actually just needs to stop doing that. Like we've spoken about in the NBA, you just got to stop doing that and stop flopping and just play the game, and you'll be more respected. So Riewoldt has been known for doing that as well. I don't think Tom Lynch has been a flopper. And Tom Lynch is only hated because of the cheap acts that he does throughout the game.
Yeah, not so much a flopper. He definitely entices the opposition to do silly things, and then the moment they have the reaction and the famous saying that the retaliation always gets caught. So I don't know if it's a flopping sort of aspect, but he does make sure that the umpire is looking when that retaliation comes. But he's doing everything in his arsenal to make sure that his team's a success, and we always talk about that sort of role that they're playing, and that's his role. And he has no problem playing the bad guy, and it's what he needs to do to get himself up for a game. So I've got no problems with that. I'm not a big fan of it myself, and I wouldn't want it happening from my club. But if he wins a premiership on the weekend, he's a two-time premiership player. So how can you argue that?
I think with all the talk about it, though, the umpires will be aware of it, so they'll be able to do that kind of thing. But I think the biggest task for Richmond in this game is Toby Nankervis. And the big ruckman, with Geelong not having a regular ruckman, Toby Nankervis needs to dominate. Now, we saw last week in the prelim final against Port Adelaide, in that first quarter, he was taking intercept marks in the back line. If he can do something similar and just drop in the hole, do that against those ruckmen, I know Stanley will try and push him forward. Toby Nankervis has to try and beat him around the ground and beat him in that defence. That will go a long way for Richmond winning.
Yeah, most definitely. The ruck matchup, not only in the actual matchup itself, in terms of the actual clearances, is going to dictate this game. Whoever wins that clearance going forward, we know that once the team has the ball, whether it be Geelong or Richmond, they control the pill, they set up there and they anchor their offense, and they do it quite well. Nankervis has been really, really strong. Stanley's probably having the best final series of any Geelong ruckman over the last 10 years, considering that they haven't had a ruckman, and that is really pivotal why Geelong are being successful.
Yeah, he's done really well with pushing forward and trying to kick goals and trying to make the other ruckman accountable. So that's what he has to do with Toby Nankervis. But Nankervis proved to us last week that he can play in defence. He took 4 intercept marks last week. He can do those kind of things. But you got to look at the weaknesses of Richmond and where Geelong are going to try and beat them. You've got Marlon Pickett. I don't think his disposal is up to it.
Does he get a game this week? Because
it's possible of getting dropped, isn't he?
Yeah, because there was big talk last week. He had 8 touches in the first half, and then he went missing for the rest of sort of the game. You got people like Josh Caddy and Marbol Chol, who probably doesn't get an actual game there, but someone with the experience of Josh Caddy knocking on the door. Do you bring in a fresh face, or do you leave it unchanged?
Look, they're going to leave it unchanged, and that's what's going to happen. If it was up to me, I'd drop Marlon Pickett for Josh Caddy. I'd try and look at dropping Daniel Rioli as well. I know he's kicked a couple of big goals. And
you're always headhunting for this bloke, mate. You're always headhunting.
Daniel Rioli, I don't think he is up to it in the best teams 22 of the league. I think he miskicks a lot, and I reckon he can be replaced by someone better at Richmond. It's not going to happen. He's going to play. Marlon Pickett's probably going to play. I would play Josh Caddy. He's a premiership player at his third club. And been like that before, been a notable goal kicker, and it's not going to happen for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think especially when the game is as close it is, you want to have the best opportunity for success, obviously, out there, needing to have the best lineup. And I don't know why you wouldn't bring premiership experience. And don't give me this rubbish about Marlon Pickett's got premiership experience, because if he does win, he'll be, winning 2 premierships in 20 games. That is not experience. You got Josh Caddy, as you said, a proven talent. Kicked big goals in big games. He knows how to get there. He's unfortunately lost his spot because of the way that Richmond have been rolling. I'd be bringing him in, and I think that would give them a better chance for actually getting a 3rd premiership in 4 years.
I think it would. They're not going to do it probably,
No way.
but that's their weakness. We talked about their strengths. How do Richmond win this game?
For me, Richmond win the game by controlling and stopping the game plan of Geelong. Geelong like to control the footy. They like to take uncontested marks. They like to use that kick game. The weather's going to play a big part in that, so it'll be interesting to see whether Geelong adjust. But for me, Richmond control the defensive game. They anchor a lot of that through that dash through the middle, that quick burst. The Gabba doesn't suit that sort of ground for them to play that sort of brand. But if they play their brand, they get their stars open, they can pile on a score quickly, and they can, you've got Lynch, Rewalt. We just talked about Bolter, and you've got Castagna, who sneaks up for a goal every other time. I think that they've got enough firepower there to be able to kick a winning score and contain Geelong. Geelong have had a lot of issues with goal kicking, and we talk about their defence. Their defence is quite strong, Pez, as we speak. You've got, we just talked about them not being able to lose a one-on-one contest this year. It's really going to be hard for Geelong to get that ball in there. And earlier in the year when they beat them, that's what they did. They set up that wall. Geelong weren't unable to get past that centre wall, and they continually just made Geelong pay. And that's what Richmond do. They make you pay when you turn it over.
And that's what they have to do. Geelong will probably have to try and control the ball. But Richmond, the one word, starts with P. It's pressure. Richmond have shown it in every game, every big game. Some games they've been, you know what, against Sydney earlier in the year, we'll just play, we'll do what we need to do. But in finals footy against St Kilda, it was all about pressure. St Kilda couldn't get the ball up forward. They couldn't kick the ball over their defence. And that's what Richmond will be hoping for with Geelong. They want to make Geelong kick it down, long down the line. They've got those big defenders. They've got Grimes. They've got Bolter. They've got Asprey to intercept the ball, to keep going back and to get that ball. They actually take risks. They're one of the best teams in the comp. They take risks. They go into the middle. They get the ball to the other wing, and then they go inside forward 50. So they don't just bomb the ball down the wing, bomb the ball. It's never been a grand final winning formula. They can't just do that. They have to take those kicks into the middle. They do that. They go there. They kick it down forward. Tom Lynch, Jack Rewalt, opportunity to kick goals.
Yeah, and you talk about the pressure, and that's exactly what happened earlier in this year. I mean, it was a completely different game and a completely different lineup. The lineup that had last time, the Cats were out Joel Selwood, Stanley, Rowan, Ablett, and the Tigers were missing Edwards, Prestia, and Asprey. So completely different, but that's exactly what Richmond did, and that kept Geelong to its lowest score of the year, only kicking 31 points for the game. They piled it on 57. They probably could have absolutely thumped Geelong. They had 15 points that game, but it was that applied pressure from the back line. People that we spoke about, Shea Bolton was amazing. Collected 3 Brownlow votes for that game, and that's going to be key for them. They got to control and win those clearances. They lost them in that game, that round 17 game. But if you put pressure on Geelong, we've seen that the game style that they have doesn't always stand up in finals, and it's an unusual one to even get to a grand final, which makes me extremely nervous.
Oh, it has to make you nervous because you speak about Richmond and how they can win, and their pressure is the scariest thing for an opposition club, and that's how they're going to win their game. We spoke about a little bit of weaknesses, but we do have to move on, and we'll go on to Geelong. We have to speak about their strengths, and we have to speak about their weaknesses, and then we're going to talk about how Geelong can win this grand final and take away Richmond's dynasty.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day, this dynasty business, Pez, because you and I had a very detailed discussion before this. Let's jump straight into Geelong. I mean, it's obviously the complete reverse of what we just said, Pez. If Geelong gets sucked into playing Richmond's game, they lose. Straight out. It's straight out. The way that they win the game is to play the game, and we talked about how they've really lent into this game style. Not only have they lent into it, they've gone over the top with it, averaging 76 more disposals per game in the finals compared to the regular season. So they've bought into this system. The system is successful if they kick straight. It is a system that provides a lot of opportunities for Geelong to score. They've just got to make sure they score. They've been probably one of the best teams throughout the final series. They were a little bit unlucky that first week, being inaccurate, really blowing them out of their game. For me, they need to control the midfield. They need to control the clearances and get first look at the pill to anchor forward, and not even worrying about having to set up a system from the back line. We know that they've got some absolute superstars in there, and just kick it forward and go.
See, I think one of their big things is going to be moving from the back line forward, and I think defense usually wins premierships, and both clubs are going to be like, this is what our defense is like, and we are going to have to move it forward through our wingmen, through our midfields, and do things like that. You make a good point of if they win it in the middle and they get it forward, you've got Hawkins and you've got Gary Rowan, who has been known to take an overhead mark in big moments. Sometimes he goes missing, and usually it's during the
Big
year,
games.
during games, sometimes. But he has the potential to take this game by the scruff of the neck and be able to kick a few goals. I like Sam Simpson, how he's still in the team, how he was in at the start of the finals, and they're keeping with him. I think he uses the ball well. I think he does things like that. And their wingmen, all Australian wingmen, Duncan, Meningola, they've got to be able to continue to do that. I think they do have more weaknesses than Richmond, which is strange to say because they probably have more players that are better named than them, but they've got more weaknesses than Richmond.
I think they've got more weaknesses across the ground in terms of the way that they play. Whereas one thing goes wrong for Geelong and the game plan sort of unfolds. Whereas Richmond, one thing sort of goes wrong and the system sort of saves them a little bit. And then that sounds funny because you're talking a system versus a game plan, because the system is flexible. Richmond's system is flexible. Geelong need to make a decision early how they're going to play this game. If it is a wet game, you need to adjust that game plan. You need to make sure that you're attacking the game differently, because otherwise Richmond will open it up. Where does Dangerfield start? Does he start in the middle? For me, I think one of the keys to winning this game is making an impact early. Putting your best midfield in the centre of the ground and forcing Richmond to start Dusty Martin there as well. They like to start him down forward. They like him to sort of have that first sort of look in the forward entry. But if you have Dustin Martin being forced to go into that midfield, now they're playing the game on your terms.
You're a Geelong supporter. Who are the four midfielders that you put in?
Dangerfield, Guthrie, Duncan, and Selwood. Straight out.
So they're the four. You got to take out one of them, and you got to put a ruckman in.
Nah.
Who's going to ruck?
No, well, Duncan comes out because Duncan goes on the wing, and you put Stanley in there, obviously. But for me, I think
I would have said the exact same, mate.
I think Dangerfield has to start in the middle. I think there is no point having him there to kick goals if you can't get it out of the middle. If you get crushed in that middle, don't even worry where Dangerfield's playing. Why not have an absolute beast in there who can go get it for you? Every time he goes in there, he gets the pill. He's going to be putting everything in this. He's going to be chomping at the bit. Never playing a grand final at the age of 30. His whole career, never played one. Not only AFL level, we're talking youngers, when they're in juniors, we're talking Auskick stuff. Never played. Put him in midfield, unleash the ball. Let him go.
The biggest thing that would hurt him is he went over in 2017 to play a prelim against Adelaide, against his old side, and lost and didn't get to play against Richmond there. He gets to play against Richmond tonight. I think your strength and Geelong's strength, Blitzarves, Taylor, Stewart, have been amazing down back. If they can continue to intercept the ball and do that, I think your forward line lets you down. You've got Brian Myers and Luke Dalhouse. I think they kind of go hand in hand. They're probably in your bottom six, and I don't rate them that highly. They can pop up for a couple of goals here and there. I don't think Dalhouse can. I think I would choose Myers over Dalhouse, but I think Dalhouse has been really disappointing this year.
Yeah, 100% been really disappointing. He was brought in to inject some pace into that forward line. He definitely has done that. He's still applying that sort of that defensive pressure from a forward, but it's not what you want from your forward when you're celebrating his season. You don't want to be saying, oh, he was really good at some defensive pressure. You want to say, hey, he kicked 10, 11 snags for us. Brian Myers, his second season, he definitely shows his inexperience at times, makes some poor skill errors, but for him, he gets enough of the pill and he pops up in the right times. Hopefully he can get a couple of snags, because when he's playing well, it means that Geelong's forward structure is working well. Either they're leading to Hawkins, or they've really opened it up. And like you said with Rowan, standing up in those big moments is what they need from those players if they want to win. If they want to even get a shot, they need those big players need to stand up, but you need the role players to work as well. Because Richmond is all role players. They all do their bit. It's not relying on one aspect. So for Geelong, those bottom six, as you said, they need to have respectable games.
Now, all this discussion is making me nervous for you, Sauce, because
I know.
I still don't know who I want to win. Like, in terms of who I want, as an analyst, I think Richmond will probably take it out. But do I want to barrack for Geelong on the day?
Yeah, you do, mate. Come on.
Is this what I want to do? Because then Geelong will win their fourth in 14 years.
Yeah, that's all right. You want another year of Richmond? You want another year of Richmond? Is that what you want?
Look, I don't know what I want. I think
even if I wasn't following Geelong, if they were playing, St Kilda, for example, that's a bad example. If they were playing Carlton, for example,
very bad example.
I don't want another year of Richmond. Do you know what I mean? Like they haven't been gracious premiership winners. They definitely haven't. They've been horrible members. They're always a horrible sort of supporter base. No offense, Richmond supporters.
And you say horrible. I say they've been respectable in terms of when they're down, and really honestly, when they're down and they're down the bottom of the ladder, they still get a hell of a lot of people at the footy.
Yeah, but do they? They are the first team to turn on their team. You're not talking about any other team microwaving their memberships, and that happens every other year with Richmond when they're not winning. And for me, that's not a supporter. And I don't care if you have 40,000 there. When you've got 170,000, of course you're going to get 40 people that are always there. And that's like any club. You've got your passionate ones. The majority of those supporters only pop up when they are winning.
Oh, listen to Sauce. He's going at it.
I'm going at it now.
Richmond versus Geelong at the Gabba tomorrow night.
At the Gabba, yeah.
It's crazy. At the Gabba. With the MCG turf, though. You've got to remember the MCG turf.
Oh, what's the Gabba CG? Gabba.
No. There's just a little bit of turf when they walk out. And
it's like GME HBA.
They can walk out. You know what? I'm going to look at it a different way. They run out. You got Dangerfield and Dusty. One of them, whoever runs out first, say Richmond run out first, yeah? Dusty runs, puts his left foot on the MCG turf, does his ACL. Can't play.
Let's move on from that, Pez. Let's not even go near that. But it is an absolute mouth-watering dish for football because you've got Danger versus Dusty. You're talking two big key forwards, Lynch versus Hawkins. You're talking about two elite back lines.
Very elite. And that's why they're there.
And exactly right. But for me, it's and you've also got two coaches who have really been in the forefront. You had Scott, who's won a premiership in his first year, hasn't been back since. And you had Hardwick, who, Richmond supporters wanted his head before they went to the promised land. And I think there's a lot of great stories. And we haven't even mentioned the best story of all, Gary Ablett playing his last game ever. What a fairy tale finish. What a champion to get his third premiership, 2 Brownlow medals, 8 All-Australians, and absolutely top off an amazing career as probably one of the greatest players in the modern day, maybe even of all time.
You have to save it for last because exactly what you said. But me with my age, you with your age, Gary Ablett's probably the best player we have ever seen.
Oh, easily. We've seen the whole career though. And that's the difference. Yes, I've seen Gary Ablett Sr. Yes, I've seen Wayne Carey play. Yes, I've seen... I haven't seen a little bit of Lee Matthews. I'm not that old. But for me...
I thought you were.
Shut up. Okay. Right, watching that whole career, he has been an absolute beast. And it's an amazing career that he's had and how successful he's been at 2 clubs.
Yeah, you got to speak about that. But like Wayne Carey, I didn't know the greatness of him when I was 8 years old. You know what I mean? I've seen Gary Ablett's whole career. With how old I am at the moment. So Gary Ablett up there for me. Gary Ablett Sr., didn't see him. My old man, everyone else, all my mates' old men, they say, you know what, Gary Ablett was the best that they could have ever seen. And I imagine it's what we're going to say in 20 years to the young kids. We're going to be saying Gary Ablett Jr. was absolutely amazing. You didn't see him play. You couldn't do this. And there's going to be someone else that they admire and they love.
Yeah, and that's why that debate is always amazing to have. And I remember a night that we had Pez looking at the if you ever get a chance at Colonial Stadium, There is an amazing, what's the room called? The EJ Witten Bar. There's an amazing whole wall mural, and it goes
Decade by decade.
And that is probably one of the best debates that you and I have had, Pez. I think we were watching a game that obviously was an absolute thumping.
Wasn't going, at halftime we started looking at it, and we didn't watch the rest of the game. We just
terrible
stayed
game.
on there.
Obviously watching St Kilda. So
I'm not allowed to say that.
no, you're not. But it was and that's what makes the debate so fun. And this will either add to that amazing sort of debates with Gary Ablett, or it probably won't get mentioned. But the fact that he was able to get back there in his last game, it's pretty special either way.
It's really special. The supporter in me and the person in me, I think I want Geelong to win. I'm still not sure because Geelong will win 4, Richmond will win 3. Because of that reason, analyst hat on, Sauce, as you told me before the show, I'm going to pick Richmond by 3 goals in the grand final.
Yeah, analyst hat on. I do think that Richmond have a better side, but there's no chance I'm making a prediction to say that. Richmond,
so you're talking about me last week.
I'm just saying. I have made, as an analyst, I think that Richmond has the better side, and I think that they are in a better position to win the grand final. But if I'm talking prediction, I think that the festivity of it with, Gary Ablett's last game, the way that they've approached it, the midfield battle that we spoke about, I think that Geelong get the chocolates by 6.
Yeah, after all that, he says that. All right, well, we don't have to do anything now because you've got a long time to wait until that grand final because it's that night tomorrow.
Not even 24 hours away.
Very, very nervous. And this is an early show if it's over 24 hours today for the Behind the Boundary podcast. But we're going to leave it there at Behind the Bound on Twitter and Instagram because you guys need to follow along there. Behind the Boundary on Facebook. I'm Pez. Go. I don't even know who to say go.
Come on,
I'm Pez.
pick one.
Peace out.
Pick one. Go someone.
Nah, I can't go for anyone tomorrow. I can't do it.
That's poor form.
Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. Go the Catters.
Now